this.
I'm like actually excited about this. What are the questions again? Just so I can prep myself.
Charles! Just want to start by saying that I don't like talking about things ever, and I don't like thinking about things. I don't like being deep, and I don't like being anything other than fine, which is not healthy. So it's good for me to do things like this, but it's annoying because it's scary.
Okay, question number 1. What is your biggest insecurity physically?
I would say my skin. Ever since I was a teen, I have had acne. It's not like the worst acne in the world, but it's definitely there.
I know I've talked about how I don't like not wearing makeup, and I said that in the podcast. And like I don't like Snapchatting people or talking to people or whatever, especially boys, when I'm not wearing makeup. I guess physically I just think I could be better.
As a teenager, my legs always really bothered me. Like, I didn't understand that when you get older, like you get bigger, you don't stay a baby forever. And I thought that I was supposed to have like an 8-year-old's body forever. So when I turned 12, when I turned 15, when I turned 16, I don't know why, but I was so uncomfortable about that. And I was like, oh, and my legs started to like expand. And I got really freaked out. I thought I was fat just because I wasn't as small as I used to be.
This is really weird to say. I think that like my biggest insecurity physically would be my, not like any features or anything in general, but more like my body type and like how short I am. And the thing that I've spent the most time being insecure about is not really the fact that I'm super short, but more the fact that I'm super, I wouldn't call myself like curvy or whatever, but I'm not like super skinny. Like when I was little, all the girls on like Disney Channel, they were all tiny people. And I would look at them and I'd be like, well, I'm not that like tiny like them. Like they have these tiny little flat stomachs and they're all like perfect and I'm not.
When I was younger, it was my thighs, like my legs, like, oh no, they're like too big, or like they're not. I always wanted to have like these really skinny like toothpick model legs, but I'm definitely not shaped like that. Like I'm definitely more of like a pear. If I gain weight, it's in my legs. But now that I'm older, my biggest insecurity is my skin. I have eczema and I also am like a magnet for bug bites. So I get a lot of different scars on my arms and legs that I'm just constantly dealing with like year round. So it's really hard, especially in the summer when everyone's wearing t-shirts and shorts. Like I'm always self-conscious about those areas like on my arms and legs.
When I was like 15, 14, it was a time when everyone was like trying to say real women have curves, because they were really trying to encourage people to not feel like everyone had to be like the skinniest person in the world, which is a good idea. But they went like too far by saying that's what a real woman was. So as a 14 and 15-year-old, I was so skinny. Like I was wearing a 00. I was so thin and there was nothing like curvy about me. I couldn't really gain weight very easily. And I was eating so much, but I was just so skinny. So I felt so insecure about my body. And there was a lot of different things that happened at that time. Like I remember one dude spread this like rumor about me that I was like anorexic because I was so skinny. So I started trying to eat more in front of people to be like, hey, look everyone, I'm eating a lot, just so you know. It took like several years of living in that to start to like question that and like face that. I'm probably one of the most critical people anyone could meet. You know, you hear people say like, oh, most people aren't thinking about you. You go through life thinking everyone's caring about everything you're doing, but like they're not. I'm that person who actually does care, who is always picking apart everyone else and pointing out their flaws. I kind of always wished that I was more carefree and secure with my personality as a whole. Like they say your biggest personality insecurity, like I'd say it's the whole thing. Personality wise, I just always wish I was more easy to be around.
The fact that I'm really shy, I've grown to accept that, but it's still really hard because certain situations where like I want to be able to talk, I don't want to be uncomfortable, I want to feel like confident that, oh, like I can make a conversation with this person, I don't want to have to like worry about it, but I do because I'm just so shy. Or certain times when I wish that I would have been able to speak up, but I don't because I'm too shy.
There was always like this big part of me that felt like I was too much, like too loud or too bossy or just too big of a personality, just too much in general. I would want to like try to shrink down, but I can't. I cannot shrink myself down and just kind of like be invisible, disappear. I just like can't do it. And that was something I had in a relationship in the past too. The dude was telling me like, you're too much, I can't deal with you. So that was like a big insecurity that I still deal with definitely right now that I'm still working on.
My biggest insecurity personality-wise was basically for my whole life, my entire personality. Just like the fact that I'm super loud and I say a lot of things before I can stop myself from saying them that I don't actually mean to say. It's really awkward a lot of time. And also the fact that I'm super like high strung, where I get really, really, really stressed out really easily about very random things that don't actually matter. And I was always super, super insecure about being really high strung and being like, I'm freaking out all the time about everything and I cry all the time because I'm so high strung and this is wrong and this is wrong and this is a crisis. That's definitely my biggest personality insecurity, is the fact that I freak out about so many things.
Personality wise, I think for part of my life, I felt like I didn't really have a personality. I always felt really invisible growing up. Like, if I wanted to be seen, then I kind of knew how. Like, I'd just be really loud or like walk around burping in public as a 12-year-old. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. If I didn't want to be seen, I could hide so easily. And then those days would go by and I'd just be like, geez, like no one has talked to me, or like no one knows I exist, or like I leave the house and I come home and nobody even knows I was gone. I actually hate being able to slip in and out so easily. I want people to know that I'm around and like miss me.
My biggest personality insecurity is that I talk too much. I've always felt like my personality was like too much. I'm very emotional. I have a lot to say. Like, I'm very talkative. Pretty much every time I talk to my friends, I'll be telling some long story and then I'll be like, sorry, I'm talking so much. Like, I always apologize for that, like at least once during talking. And like in groups, like I feel like I just always like say stuff and then afterwards I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna think you're such a know-it-all. Like, you just talked so much and why couldn't you just be quiet and like listen? I'm just like, I get down on myself for that a lot.
How did you overcome your insecurity? And are you still overcoming it right now? For the whole like body thing, I really just had to sit down and I had to like make peace with my body and like write a whole series of letters to myself and to my body and be like, you know what? You're not betraying me by being like this. You're not this. You're a good body. I appreciate you. My body itself was not the problem. It was the way I was seeing it. That was like the main thing, is like getting in touch with the core of why you're insecure with something and making peace with it. And personality wise, I just had to realize that like, you know what? I'm gonna freak out about a lot of things in my life. I just have to learn to roll with it. And that made me a little less insecure because I was like, you know what? I can handle myself. I'm not out of control. And even if I am out of control, it's okay to be out of control.
Body wise, I don't want to jump the gun, but I feel like I'm 100% good. Not like, oh, now I look exactly how I want to look, but I'm just completely comfortable with myself. If I gain some weight, if I lose some weight, whatever is happening, I'm pretty much always comfortable with it. And as a teenager, that was not the case. If I shrank, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm too skinny, no one will like me. Or if I gained weight, I'd be like, I'm too big, no one will like me. And I kind of started to journal all this out and analyze all my patterns, and I realized like, here I am looking super skinny and I wasn't happy with it. Here I am looking a little thicker and I wasn't happy with it. Like, it doesn't really matter what I am. There's a deeper problem here of just me not being able to accept myself, period. The thing that helped me with my body but then dug me deeper was I realized that I just had low self-esteem. So I didn't like my personality, I didn't like my body. I was just trying to find some excuse. It's because your legs are too big. It's because you don't have enough muscle. It's because you have a chubby face. You have hairy feet. Or, my personality, like, oh, you're too quiet, or you're too harsh, you're too cold, you're too critical, you're too closed off. No one will ever love you. Once I realized my body wasn't the problem, I was just like, all right, I'm not gonna stress about this anymore. But then I had to go deeper and be like, okay, so the real problem is I just think that I am worthless as a person. Great. Even to this day, I love my personality. I think that it's iconic. I love the way I look. I love my hair. Like, I feel great about all those things. There's not something about me that bothers me. My down days now, as a person, I just feel worthless. I just feel like I don't deserve to be loved, or I don't deserve to be happy, or I don't deserve to like achieve things in life or have anything good. When I'm having those days where I feel worthless, I just write out all of my feelings so I can express them. I feel invisible. I feel like a horrible person. I feel like no one will ever love me. I feel like I'm gonna die alone. I write all my feelings, and then I write out all the reasons why it's not true once I've calmed down. And then I write out positive affirmations like, I am beautiful, I am lovable, I have a great personality, I'm a great person, I can do so much good. I just need to put my skills to use and be of service to people. And that really helps me. I think journaling is the #1 way that I get myself out of that hole, and also talking it out with other people, because once you say it out loud, you kind of hear how crazy it sounds. Like, I'm gonna die alone. It's like, a lot of people feel that way? Why do you think that you're so special, that you will be that one person that actually dies alone, even though most people feel that way at some point?
How are you overcoming it is a great question. As I said earlier, I like to ignore things and pretend they're not happening because I'm so scared of my inner world and my emotions and my thoughts and everything that's not surface level. Being friends with people who aren't overwhelmed by me, who don't make me feel bad when I'm over the top and crazy. Because I used to be friends with people who thought that I was overwhelming and over the top and talked too much and would make me feel bad about it. And so I stopped being friends with those people, and now my only friends, which I have very few friends, but that's okay because my very few friends understand me and don't make me feel bad.
As far as physical insecurities go, this is actually kind of a weird thing to think of if you're insecure about something, but I just kind of like expose it to the world. So I would like challenge myself to like not wear concealer when I was hanging out with people, like not wear any makeup, like show my acne. And I realized like nobody was like, wow, I hate you. Like people don't care. These things that you see on yourself that you're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever, I'm so ugly or whatever, it's not that dramatic to everyone else. Think about yourself, like how often do you even notice other people's skin? You don't really notice it because you're probably thinking about your own skin and what they're noticing, but then they're thinking about their own skin, thinking that you're noticing, but really you're both just thinking about yourselves. People think that their appearance is a lot more important than it actually is. Because if you think about your friends, the people you care about, you don't like them because of what they look like. You like them because of their heart and their character and things that they've done for you, like the ways that they've shown that they care for you. You don't care what they look like.
For the skin thing, that is something that I'm still really struggling with. Like I feel self-conscious about that every single day. I'm trying to just be more zen about it and be like, okay, Kath, like if you notice that someone else had like scars, then you wouldn't judge them. You wouldn't think they looked bad or like ugly. So you don't have to judge yourself for that and like make yourself feel bad about it. When I see other people, like I am not just staring at their flaws like, oh my gosh, but I feel like everyone does that to themselves. And for like the personality one, I feel like I had a lot of people that I used to be friends with when I was younger that kind of brought that insecurity out of me. That would be like, okay, and your point is, they would just kind of subtly criticize me for how I told stories or like how much I had to say. I found as I got older, there were certain people that really appreciated me and my personality just the way it is and the way I tell stories. And I appreciate those people just as much for being so gracious to me, wanting to really know me and all the things that I have to say. And I try to be really gracious back to them and like ask them just as many questions and really like listen and care about their stories. So I feel like just surrounding myself with people that affirmed me and who I am has been really helpful for that. But it is still something that I feel like scared sometimes, like, am I talking too much?
How I overcame the physical insecurities more of like learning to love my body. Charles is like, I'm getting out of here. It's too personal.
We just laughed.
Yeah, he's like, get me the heck out, because he knows we're not friends. How I overcame the insecurities of like my body, I would say, I don't actually know how that happened. I think actually Nick, my fiance, helped me a lot because I don't know how to describe this, but he would never make any comments that would make, like not even one comment that would make me feel like I wasn't good enough and that I need to change something. He wouldn't make too many comments in general that were so shallow that made me feel like I needed to put so much importance on my looks and my body specifically. And the way that he was so accepting of me it kind of showed me what that looks like. So I was like, oh my gosh, if he's like that, I can be like that about myself. So I know that sounds kind of weird. And in some ways, I wish I could say like, oh, I just figured it out and I told myself this, this, and this. But really, the whole reason is because he showed me. And then I actually did start to say like, listen, it's not my job to look perfect for anyone else. And it's not my job to have a perfect body. And it's not my job to be this or this. I like who I am. I guess I've chosen at this point that I choose to like who I am. Because the other thing I think about all the time is if I choose not to like who I am, I'm just making it hard for myself. Personality-wise, I have to remind myself all the time, like, you just have big personality and big personalities exist and they are great. Whether your personality is like in your face or not in your face, it's still great no matter what. Because I don't believe that God creates trash personalities. I think they're all great. So I just have to remind myself like, listen, your personality is great. You're allowed to have a big personality. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to be loud. That was something I learned from Brene Brown. She would write herself permission slips and be like, you have permission to be excited about this. So I kind of give myself permission.
You're doing the best you can. You get one body, stop trashing it, don't be rude to yourself because you don't deserve that, and you wouldn't treat anyone like that, and you wouldn't want anyone to treat you like that. So why would you treat yourself like that? So don't spend your life at war with yourself.
What would you say to someone that had the same insecurity? You know, that's a really great question because I feel like everyone who answered this would be like, oh, you're so great. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll be fine. But like, you don't say it to yourself. So I'm sure that's the purpose of this question. Your personality is great. Like, I'm sure from the outside, people really appreciate me. And my sisters tell me and my friends tell me that my personality is great. And then I'm here on the inside being so critical and picking myself apart and trying to please everyone and trying to be this thing. I have this thing where I like morph into whatever someone wants me to be. So I would say don't morph yourself into what other people want you to be because it doesn't matter. It's really hard for me to see that it doesn't matter. I'm still working on that. Surrounding yourself with people who will point out if you're acting differently, because I know that as a loud, outgoing, overwhelming, sometimes kind of personality, you can easily subdue yourself a lot of times. So I would say don't do that. If you surround yourself with people who outwardly, verbally, clearly make you feel good about yourself for your personality, then it won't be that hard. Like if you can just be yourself around someone, you'll find that you can be yourself around the rest of the world because you become comfortable with them. And then they start to help you see that you're good and that your personality isn't bad. And then you're like, oh, maybe it's not. And then it just kind of is like a cycle.
To anyone dealing with physical insecurities, maybe they're shifting, maybe it's always the same thing, I would say stop taking out this low self-esteem on your body because your body is not the problem. It seriously isn't, and I can truly tell you that. Personality-wise, I love this quote that says, if you get to know anyone well enough, you will love them. So if you don't feel like you love yourself, you probably just don't know yourself well enough. For me, getting to know myself was figuring out all the things that I like, things that I don't like, you know, the clothes that I like, the TV shows that I like, the music that I like. I just had to figure out all of my taste and everything, you know, just all these little things. They come together and they add up and that's you. And sometimes it helps just write it down, like, this is what I'm good at. These are nice things about me. You know, what are some things that people point out? Like, oh my gosh, you're so good at conversation. Or you're so sweet. You're such a kind person. Or you're so driven. You're so confrontational. I mean, all of these things are like really good. There's so many traits that people have that are redeeming qualities. Just pay attention and observe the nice things about you and write them out and get to know yourself. And I feel like that will help you find that inner peace.
Anyone who's going through what I went through as a teenager, teenage life is a really hard, weird time because your mind is just like so on this roller coaster of hormones and everything else going on. So you're just like, trying to hold on. So try not to take things too seriously. If you can, try to remember like, I'm just a teenager right now. This is not gonna be like this forever. Things are gonna change. My mind is gonna change. My life is gonna change. Everything's gonna change. You're probably not gonna feel the same way for the rest of your life as you do when you're a teenager. You don't have to look any certain way or be any certain thing to be a real woman. Don't let anyone make you feel like you need to change the way you look or do anything to earn something. Don't let the world dim your smile.
What would I say to someone that had the same insecurity? People that I love that have scars, that have like acne or any kind of like skin flaw. I never think about that, notice that, like that is not something that I'm like looking at and staring at. Like maybe I'll see it and be like, oh yeah, like they had a breakout or like, oh, they have a scar. When I'm with them, I'm like more thinking about their personality, their emotions, like what we're talking about, what they're going through. Like when you truly love someone, I don't think you really zero in on like those little imperfections. I feel like that's just the perfectionist in our mind. So I try to think about like, oh, well, Kath, you don't do that to other people. So why would they do that to you like you're doing it to yourself? I know it's so hard. I get it. Like I feel your pain, but it's not the end of the world. And there's so many beautiful things about you. Like you just have to focus on the things that you do love. I feel like I just at this point have to accept it. Like I'm just not gonna have perfect skin and that is okay. And there's many different ways that I could have flaws and that is one of them and that's okay. If you are like me where you do genuinely ask questions and you do genuinely want to know people and hear their stories, but you also have a lot to say and a lot that you want to share and hear other people's opinions on and like process with someone, you need to find people that understand that and can relate to you and treat you well and not be like, okay, and your point is like trying to rush you. I would just say find your tribe, like find those people that make you feel good for being who you are and like telling your stories the way that you like them. It's beautiful that you have something to say and I think it's a great personality trait and something that you can learn to love.
What I would say to someone who has the same insecurities is You probably think like, oh, I'm boring, like, people don't like me, I don't know how to talk to anyone, I don't really talk in groups that much, so no one's gonna like me. Think about movies, TV, books, like the main character is generally a shy person. It's like some like awkward introvert, but everybody loves them. Everybody loves those introvert characters. You love them, I love them, pretty much everyone does. And people like the other characters too, but just like, if you think that people don't like quiet people, you're very wrong. Especially the loud people. The loud people love the quiet people, because if we were all loud, then it would just be a big mess. I think with that, you have to find the good parts of it. I'm really observant. I'm a really good listener. I can be really caring and attentive to people because I'm not talking, I'm observing more. Yes, if you are like painfully shy and you literally will not speak to anyone, that's probably something you should work on. So you do need to push yourself, but also realize that you don't have to be outgoing. You don't have to be. People will still like you. You will live your life just fine if you're not outgoing. If you want to say something, you should. But if you don't want to talk, then don't feel like you need to. There's nothing wrong with being quiet.
Whoever told you that you weren't enough? Who was it that made you feel small? I wish I could go back and rewind it all. Replace it